Hello and welcome to another edition of In Between Pages with James Lott Jr. I am James Lott Jr., super organizer and a life coach and a media person and an author myself. And this person I had on before when his last week, Malibu Burning, which I loved. But when we talked afterwards, he mentioned about this book coming out, and I was like, it sounds. I now that I've read it too, it sounded so like I need to read this book. They sent me an early copy. I got to read it, and it's out now. But this book is something else. I was trying to describe it to somebody. I think I had like 5, 10, 15 different words. So we're going to get into it with I have the author, best-selling author. The book is called Calico, and it's my buddy, Lee Goldberg. Hi, Lee.
And I apologize for this Roy Orbison look that I have. But as I was telling James before we got online here, I took a bad slip and fall, and I had this black eye that's something out of a Wes Craven movie. Okay. So I'm hiding it behind these glasses. This is not me going Hollywood. I apologize for the reflection you're getting.
You've gone Hollywood already. It's all right. It's too late. It's fine. It's fine. No, actually, you're great. Actually, I want to first say congratulations. Calico is out. This is my pre-release copy. There's the real copy. There's the ebook. It's all out there. Audio, everything's all out there. You can go and get it. But congratulations, first of all.
Thank you.
Does it ever get old, birthing these books, the excitement of it all?
No, I thought I would get used to it, but nothing beats the thrill of opening up that box of books and seeing them for the first time. It's always like the first time. I've written dozens of books, and that feeling of excitement never gets old, and that's when it feels like it's real. When you're holding the book in your hand, it's like, oh my God, I actually wrote a book.
You wrote a book. And this book, we'll get to that in a second, but you've been on tour with your brother. I've been following your adventures. So what has that been like for you, Lee? How's that been?
Oh, it's a lot of fun. He's 9 years younger than me. He's a New York Times best-selling author. He writes crime fiction just like I do, except he's more of a literary writer. I'm more mainstream. I'm Gilligan's Island. He's Shakespeare. It's he's going for more than I am. But we have a lot of fun doing talks together, and we make fun of each other. In fact, we did an event recently where we introduced each other using the worst review written about us. So I introduced him as my smarmy and humorless brother, and he introduced me as profoundly unsatisfying and deeply disappointing.
Oh my God. Those are some interesting reviews.
Yes, those are our worst reviews.
Wow. All righty. Yes. Well, actually, this another quick question there. Do reviews actually bother you at all at this point?
No. I mean, the other day, the New York Times had a just horrible review of John Grisham's book. They say he wished he'd never written it, that it was a waste of paper, and that he urinated on his legacy, and that it was just they trashed it. So they have this horrible review of his book in the New York Times. Turn the page, and it's number one.
There you go.
It makes no difference. Right. If you're going to believe the good reviews, you got to believe the bad ones. So if you want to just let go of the bad ones, you got to let go of the good ones too.
That's very true. That's very true. Oh my God, I love that. And you are a multiple New York Times bestseller person. Okay, so this book, it's part Western. It's crime drama. It's expressive. It's
erotic. It's sweet. It's animated.
When you see where I'm getting at, like it's I was like, because somebody's like, well, can you describe? I said it's good. So number one, it's good. I love following Beth and her journey and all this, but I'm like, there's twists and turns, which I love. Like when we were last, I was like, good, it's twists and turns, and I want that too. But I think the Western element kind of threw me off a little. And I've been in places like Barstow, which if you go to Vegas, you stop in bars over you go to Vegas. It's one of those kind of little places you go to. But so you just tell people how do you describe the book?
I describe it as a genre mashup, a cross between a contemporary police procedural and a period Western set in 1883 that share the same dead body.
Yes. That is it.
I don't say much more than that. I don't say much more than that because I don't want to ruin all the twists. Though a lot of reviews have a lot of spoilers out there for the book, but I have sympathy for them because how do you get around it? Reviewing the book. but it's not the first book that has meshed these genres. Up here on my shelf, I've got Jonathan Evanson's Small World, which is also a Western in present day. You have Anthony Dewar's Cloud Cuckoo Land, which is set in like 1392, 1962, and 3097. I mean, it's not, I didn't invent this form.
Right.
The challenge is having it all meshed together as a single song and not a melody, to have it all work as a unified whole, so it doesn't feel like two very different books that just happen to share the same binding. That's the hard part.
Well, I think you accomplished that because it was a back and forth type of thing. But you're right. It's the same thing was going on. There's a through line, which you read the book, you'll find what the through line is. But it was just kind of one chapter or a couple of pages. You're reading this here. That it kind of switches over here. And you're like, oh, okay, let me switch my brain. So I was as I was reading it, trying to picture how this would look if it was a miniseries or limited series or a movie. I was doing that actually.
My agent's doing that too.
yeah. Good agent. But I mean, I was doing it in a way that, I was like, I'm trying to picture it because, when you read a book, you're supposed to kind of picture what you feel and you go to another place. You really do when you get this book, you go to another place. You do. But I'm like, I was trying to picture how they would execute this a little bit. It can be done. It can totally be done.
I think you could actually expand it. I mean, you could make it into 8 episodes. There's a lot of stuff I left on the quote unquote cutting room floor. I had a lot more in 1883 and a lot more with Beth McDade, who's the cop in present day in Barstow, and her day-to-day life as a law enforcement officer in hell.
Yes, basically.
But it slowed down the momentum. So I found myself trimming quite a bit.
Oh, so wait, so was the book like much more? Was it like,
the original draft was quite a bit longer, and I went through and took out a lot of stuff that I just felt slowed the plot down and slowed the momentum.
Also, the title Calico makes sense to me now.
Calico is the strangest place. I don't know how many of your viewers and listeners have made that schlep between Los Angeles and Las Vegas. But Calico is in the middle of Mojave Desert in an area called Yermo, and it's up in the hills, and it's a ghost town. It's a cheesy roadside attraction. But what makes it different from so many other cheesy roadside attractions is that it's a ghost town built on the ruins of a real ghost town. Right. Calico was a booming silver mine, silver camp in the late 1800s that produced more than half of this nation's silver and borax. It should have been a major city, but it ran out of minerals, and it was in a place that no place should be. But it was actually Walter Knott, who came later up with Knott's Berry Farm, who worked in Calico when he was young as a carpenter. And when he saw the ruins later in life, he said, I'm going to rebuild this and make it sort of a museum, not just a roadside attraction. And he rebuilt Calico, and it was successful. And he liked the idea so much, he created Knott's Berry Farm and recreated Calico in Knott's Berry Farm and gave Calico, the real Calico, to the county of San Bernardino in the state of California as a park.
Wow.
So, yes, it's a roadside attraction. Yes, it's cheesy, but it's also very real. The mines you go through are real mines. The buildings that exist there are the original buildings that have been rebuilt. So it's a weird slice of history that's been monetized.
Do you have how easy or hard is it to write about a period? Because the book goes between the late 1880s and like 2019, whatever. So we know the present day you live here, but you didn't live in the 1880s that I know of. So how is it to write about that time period to make it relate to today, to the story you're talking about today?
I hated myself for picking this because you write something written in 1880, it's set in 1883. There's nothing your characters can do that doesn't require research.
Right.
The moment they step out their door, what's the door look like? What are they wearing? How are they getting from one place to another? How do they eat? How do they drink? What are their teeth like? What's their hair like? How do they take care of themselves? How do you get water and food in the middle of the Mojave? What does it feel like? What does it smell like? what is everyday life? I mean, do they brush their teeth? What do they use for soap? You know, I had to research everything.
Wow.
And I discovered that the West that we watch on television in the movies and that we read about is so unbelievably sanitized it might as well be Star Trek. I mean, the actual West was a disgusting place to live.
Yes.
They didn't have running water. You know, they didn't have sewers. You had raw sewage going down the middle of the street, not just horses, but human defecation and urine everywhere. You didn't have modern medicine and dentistry. You had people with horrible teeth who rarely bathed, especially in the Mojave Desert, where it's so hard to get water. You don't waste it bathing in it. And when you do bathe in it, you may be the 10th, 15th, or 30th person in that bathtub. It's disgusting. Yeah. And yet you look at John Wayne and Matt Dillon and the Ponderosa Ranch, and they're all in like perfectly pressed Western clothes with great hair and straight teeth. And it's like they have a toilet somewhere, and the food seems to be just terrific. It was a horrible, horrible time to live. Yeah. And no one looked like Randolph Scott. So that gave me a way into telling the Western story in a way that those of us living today can understand. It was not a romantic place to be. And not everyone is carrying a gun. Not everyone's a gunslinger. You know, there aren't Indians everywhere. It was just, in fact, in Calico, there was no marshal. There was no bank. What there were hundreds of hookers, but that's a whole nother story.
That's a book right there.
Yeah.
No, and he's, folks at home, he is right, because I have friends who work on a show called When Calls the Heart on the Hallmark Channel, and they had to explain to people, you don't want to see them with dirty faces, and because a period piece, there's like, you don't want to see them how they really looked back then. We're using dramatic license. Like, we're going to go.
It's not just dramatic license. It's science fiction. And it's funny. It's a small world. Literally 48 hours ago, I was having lunch with the former showrunner of When Calls the Heart, Robin Bernheim.
Yeah, I know. Yes. Oh my God, how funny. I'm like,
in fact, Robin and I co-created the Hallmark series Mystery 101, which ran for 8 movies.
I keep forgetting you and I are both connected. I keep forgetting. Yes, yes, very much. So, but anyway, that's the whole point. It's that you don't. They're not going to be authentically. We're not going to see them, crapping on the yard or in the back, or they're not going to. They'll have a bathroom, right, or something.
Well, the closest Western on television to reality was probably Deadwood.
Okay.
And probably in terms of Westerns in the movies, McCabe and Mrs. Miller. That Warren Beatty movie. And Sergio Leone with the sweat and the grit and the dust. He captured more of the real West than John Ford or, a lot of these other legendary Western directors and legendary Western movies. Everyone was too well coiffed, too well pressed. So I tried to bring a modern day attitude, without spoiling things, to the Old West.
Right.
And in this book, I tried to take the cliches and tropes of at least 3 genres, one of them being police procedural, one of them being the Western, and totally subverting them. I mean, honoring them and acknowledging them, but then twisting them.
Well, it made the through line story very interesting, actually, very, very interesting, because you're like, oh, there's a connection. So I'm trying to be very careful what I say too. There's a connection. And you're like, oh, okay, and it's really well done. It's really well done. I love it.
There's also an emotional connection between Beth McDade and the stranger who wanders into Calico, Owen Slater, who is really a man out of time. He finds himself in a place where he has no skills and doesn't know how he's going to survive. All he can do is cook a good meal, in a place where there's nothing good to cook.
Right.
But they both have the same emotional investment, which is trying to make up for mistakes they made in their past. They're seeking redemption by trying to assure the future for somebody else, trying to make things right.
Several of your books I've read now, that's a theme, isn't it? With some of your characters.
Yeah.
There's always a redemptive thing, or they're fighting something from their past.
I'm not personally aware of my themes. I don't write a book intending to explore a theme the way more literary people do. But my brother, who's an English professor, in addition to being a novelist, he says my books have consistent themes. One of the ones that stretches through all of them, and once he made me aware of it, I was kind of embarrassed. There are 3 things that apparently I keep repeating. One is the contrast between popular culture and our modern reality of life, the way we live, and how we try to measure ourselves against popular culture, and how popular culture tries to shape who we are, and the conflict that's created by trying to live up to a fictional ideal. I do that in my Eve Ronin novels. I do that in my book, True Fiction. Hell, it's right there in the title. And I do that even in this book. There's a lot of cultural references, and the heroes or protagonists realize that the cultural references don't fit, and they're ill prepared to deal with these situations based on what they've learned from watching television and reading books. Though watching television and reading books actually shapes the events that happen. You
have some references in Malibu Burning too. I mentioned on the show.
Yes, and the other thing,
yes, you do.
That surprised me was a few years ago at a signing for one of the Eve Ronin novels. A woman came up to me and said that I was her favorite Western writer. I said, but I've never written a Western. Yeah. And she said, all your books are Westerns. I went, oh, well, wait a minute. I mean, I know I wrote a book called Mr. Monk in Trouble, where a lot of the book takes place during the California Gold Rush with an old ancestor of monks. That was really just a monk novel. And I wrote a book called King City that was my take on Gunsmoke, a modern day take on Gunsmoke. But otherwise, there are no horses or sagebrush or wide open spaces to be found in my books. And she pointed out, all your books have Western themes. And so many of your books have people wearing cowboy hats. And she was right. I mean, I have a book called Malibu Burning where the guy's wearing a cowboy hat the whole damn time. I have a book coming out in 3 weeks, 4 weeks, maybe a little bit longer, in January. I have a book coming out in January called Dreamtown that is set in Hidden Hills, which is an equestrian community.
Yes, I know.
And I have a marshal there who wears a cowboy hat that my character Eve Ronin clashes with, and they're on horseback. It's like, it wasn't even subtle, and yet I didn't even notice it. And now I've written Calico, which is essentially a Western, whether the modern day part or the contemporary part. So I guess there's some Western themes that I naturally gravitate to, no matter what I'm writing.
Well, now you know that. Is there a Western in your future?
No, I'm writing a romance, Gothic romance.
Okay. Gothic romance.
I think in a sense, Calico was my Western because people today, my readers, such as they are, all 5 of them, they expect police procedurals from me. And more importantly, that's what publishers expect from me. So if I write a Western, I damn well better find a way to wedge in a police procedural. And that's what I did with Calico.
Yes. And it's more than 5 people. Trust everybody. Don't listen to him. It's more than 5 people. But no, I just think it's really interesting to find out something that you're not doing on purpose. You just kind of, I guess it's what you gravitate as a writer, you gravitate to those things. And it is a through line. When you said cowboy, I go, wait a minute, in Malibu Burning, it was a cowboy. I'm like, I did remember that part. I was like, oh my God, there is. And
Eve Ronin, my heroine in that other series, is essentially a cowboy. You know, she's going cowboy all the time, in the way she approaches her job. And Calico, I mean not Calico, but Calabasas is a Western community in Los Angeles County.
What do you think is attractive about that to you? Well, now that you're thinking about that, what is that attraction to that style?
I think it's always about a hero who has their own strong moral code in a place that doesn't have a moral code, or trying to impose order on a place that has disorder. And I think the Western draws those contrasts into sharp definition. I think Western is not so much a time period as it is a way of thinking, a way of telling a story, a way of presenting character. And I mean, Elmore Leonard was a Western writer and a crime writer, but I would argue all his books are Westerns, especially the Raylan Givens novels. So it's an attitude, it's an approach. And I wasn't aware I was doing that until it was pointed out to me. And now I'm self-conscious about it. But Calico has done so well already. It's only been out a short time.
I know.
The publisher would love a sequel. I just don't know when I'd get around to writing it. And frankly, I don't know what it would be yet.
Yeah, you kind of, I almost said something. Yes, I don't know what it would be either.
I leave the door open. I've learned a long time ago. I wrote a book called True Fiction that was meant to be one and done, a standalone thriller. And it did so well that my publisher said, we want 2 sequels. And I went, I have no idea how to do a sequel to that book. And then a few weeks later, and after they threw money at me, I had ideas for sequels.
Yes, you did, didn't you? You're like, I got to. I
And
mean, it is left open. Yes, you could write something from it.
so now I leave all my books, that even the ones I intend to be standalones, I leave the door open for a sequel. I don't make it impossible for me to write one.
Yeah.
Um,
Does that make it harder to close a story, or no? Just like you just
no,
find a way to, yeah.
no,
Okay.
because I also don't know what the sequel to this would be. It might be an entirely different thing. I don't know.
True.
But I don't. Malibu Burning wasn't meant to be a series either,
I
and
told you I wanted to know when I was. Yeah, exactly right.
Malibu Burning did so well that I'm already writing the third one.
That's what you were saying. Yeah, I can't. I mean, yeah, that's yeah. Well, you and I talked about it off camera about that. So yeah, I'm very excited about that. I want to know the next two. I'm very excited about that series too. I know. It's just I'm sitting here and I'm like, it goes back and forth and back and forth, and there's lots of other dates in here. And you mentioned it. So my friend just went to the Silver Lake Reservoir recently. I'd never been. Just went there. Just locations in this book that are interesting for you guys out there, and everything. So I mean, I'm assuming. I mean, like I said, I've been through that area. You must have spent time out there, right? You must have spent some time out there to know it. To know it.
Yes, but I also interviewed a lot of law enforcement people who live and work out there,
Okay.
and got their impressions of what it is to be a law enforcement officer in middle of the desert. And that's purely a Western, because you could think of their cars as a man on horseback, because when you're out there patrolling the desert and something goes wrong, backup won't be there for 45 minutes or an hour at least.
Right.
So you're on your own. You have to be the law. And if you encounter a dead body or a crime, you have to also be the forensic person. You have to start gathering the evidence before it's gone. So you have a forensic kit in your trunk, and you have a medical kit, because sometimes you get out there and something goes wrong and blood is spilled. It could be quite a while before paramedics or EMTs can get out there. You know, maybe they can send a helicopter from San Bernardino, but still, that's going to take time.
Yeah, it's a big time. And I'm just surprised that that whole area isn't all built up. There's still areas that aren't built up.
Because it's unlivable. It's hell. No one should be out there.
Hey, folks are in Palm Springs.
That's a little different.
I'm saying parts of Palm Springs, I'm like, wait, it's 135 degrees. I'm like that. You can't even walk on the sidewalk. I'm like, that's too much for me.
My brother lives down there year round. There are times you step outside and your hair starts burning.
Yes, exactly. I'm like, oh, but I know Mojave and all that. I mean, Death Valley, all that. I know it's all I said. I've been in Barstow many times, and not much to it. I mean, I stop in through as I'm going to Vegas.
Yeah,
coming from Vegas, there's not much to it. But I'm like, it's still not. I'm just surprised it's not. I mean, they build everywhere. It seems like they're not. It's not built out at all.
No, they've tried. They've tried to build beautiful lake communities out there. You know, Tahitian Village and all this stuff, because they've built these man-made lakes using the natural springs there, and none of them have taken off. There are, believe it or not, competition water skiing lakes out there in the Mojave, where they've built these lakes just for training water skiing, and they build very expensive homes there that lie empty most of the time. People come out there maybe for weekends and holidays or for training, and there are a lot of tweakers and stuff that will rob those homes. And there's a scene in the book dealing with one of those lakeside homes. But they also built, these developments that went bust. So you've got these lakes surrounded by 3 or 4 shitty homes, and empty desert, and it's quite disgusting.
Yeah, I trust me. I like you. I would not want to live out there. That's fine. I'm good. But yes, but it makes for a good place for a novel.
Yes,
it's a good place. Calico is the book. It's out. Get it. Run and get it. You can get it so many different formats: hardcover, softcover, audio, Kindle.
I'll come to your house and perform it in your living room. We have an animated version. It's a cartoon for kids. There's a musical version. You can even get the hologram version, and don't forget the software.
I want the musical version. That's what I want. I was like writing.
Actually, I just forgot his name. Oh, who's the guy who sings The Gambler?
Kenny Rogers.
Kenny Rogers did a concept album 50 years ago called Calico, and it's all songs about the ghost town of Calico.
Okay, I gotta look that up. Okay, I gotta look that up.
It was Kenny Rogers and the group he was with before he went solo.
Oh, the first edition, I think they're called.
Yeah.
Okay, I will look that. I love Kenny Rogers. I'll look that up. But that is hilarious. Lee, you have to come back. I'm going to read all your books. You have to keep coming back, and so I can talk your books with you. They're so good. Calico is the book. Lee Goldberg is the man. Thank you so much, Lee, for being on the show.
My pleasure. And again, sorry for the sunglasses.
Yeah, that's fine. It's good. As long as your voice works, that's all we care about.
Yeah.